Hello, and welcome to Shifting Gears or Securing Software in the Public Transportation Business. I am Massimo. Hello, I'm a security specialist at Solita, and I specialize in software development, cloud security, and implementing DevSecOps organizational transformations. Here today, I have as a guest Petri.
Hello, my name is Petri Kukko. I'm the head of cybersecurity and CISO of the Joint Local Authority HSL. Our brand and slogan is anything is possible. That can be understood in many ways. I hope you understand that and think about it in a positive way. We are managing the public transport and the transport systems in the Helsinki regional area. HSL has about 400 employees, and we have about 1 million customers. The annual turnover of HSL is currently approximately 1 billion euros. To help you better understand the reasons behind our current threat landscape, let's travel back a few years. In 2020, the time of the new normal began for all of us. The world faced the COVID virus, which caused a global change in the way people and organizations operate. In our case, the big challenge was the effects of the public transport due to the pandemic. Ensuring business continuity was totally the key in everything. I still remember a conversation with our financial manager in about January 2020 when we were doing business continuity planning. We were discussing, can we handle the financial administration tasks remotely if we are unable to use the office premises? We pretty much smiled at it and found it very unlikely at the time. Well, about 3 months later, after this discussion, we tested it for real when we had to work remotely due to the pandemic. We were forced to do that. Fortunately, we were able to cope with the challenges of financial management even in this situation. HSL established a task force that monitored threats holistically from a security point of view. We also did that. But however, at this time, we did not notice any major changes in the cybersecurity threat landscape. Just when the abnormal situation regarding the pandemic started to ease a little, we faced a new challenge. After 2 years from the pandemic, the start of the pandemic, on February 24, 2022, Russia started the invasion of Ukraine. The security political situation changed completely in one day. Finland had to evaluate the position and the related risks due to this new changed situation. In May 2022, President Sauli Niinistö and the Prime Minister Sanna Marin publicly announced that Finland would apply for a NATO membership. HSL as an organization at that time also quickly noticed the changed situation and landscape in cybersecurity. We decided to initiate the procurement of the cybersecurity framework arrangement. We needed more help from our partners. The contract value of which is 50 million euros. The agreement has now been in use for about 2 years. And for example, Solita is one of our important partners in this framework agreement. That's one of the reasons we are here today. We also identified serious changes in the cybersecurity threat landscape during the summer and fall of 2022.
We all followed the NATO application process very closely, but did you notice any attacks right after certain political decisions were made, Petri?
Well, actually, yes. We were affected. For example, the cars registered to Russia were banned from crossing the border to Finland. After the annunciation of that, we confronted major attacks, DDoS attacks, the next day, among many others. So yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
On December 12, 2022, it was a critical day for our company, HSL, in cybersecurity. We faced the first so-called major DDoS attack. The attack came with a tremendous force and was quite sophisticated. They had power, they had clearly money behind them. As shown in this image, in the first blue box on the left, the attacker had identified a vulnerability in a system in the outer edge of the network. Through this system, the attacker was able to affect the second blue box in the middle, which was a system in the internal network. With this domino effect, they were able to damage the usability of the HSL route guide and the mobile application. Those two, which are our crown jewel applications, extremely important to us and to our customers. The identified vulnerability was a matter in the software and software architecture that had not been identified during the audit of the system. We did audit the system, but it was not enough. The attack happened in cycles around the clock. There were hardly any rest periods. The services worked between times, and the threshold to turn off the services completely was very high for us because of the impact on the passengers. We decided that in this case, we will only shut down the services as a last resort. We gathered all possible help around us, and the attack was finally mitigated about a week after it started. So it lasted for 1 week. The attack had an extremely stressful effect on the entire organization.
Petri, was this dependency between the external and the internal system something that could have been detected earlier, perhaps with threat modeling?
Well, I believe so. That is something we could absolutely handle in the design phase, for sure. So yes.
Yeah.
So, this is a competition with attackers that continues even today. This is a part of the new normal that we all face today. Our maturity against the attacks has grown by a great deal since 2022, since 2 years. If we describe our protection capability in terms of a racing car, for example, a racing car, we can actually tune the car only up to a certain point, certain limit. However, this does not remove the root cause. We need to take better care of how and in what way we build these racing cars and the garages where we keep them. So it's a holistic view, a design thing. To get a better understanding of the big picture, we need to look at the things from a more holistical way. That is the key. We should include design thinking that enables the identification of threats and the integration of security into software development as early as possible. Do it very early. Staying involved throughout its life cycle, the whole life cycle of the software. Please remember that also. The importance of risk orientation cannot be underlined more in this context. This is all around the risks and the risks management. It is at the center of everything we do, the risks. This is exactly what we are doing together with our partner Solita. And next, Massimo will explain in a little bit more detail and more technically what this is all about. Please, Massimo.
Thank you, Petri. So, moving on to considering security in software development projects in general. and some typical issues that these projects might face. The foremost issue is that the security requirements passed to the actual teams can't be easily understood and implemented. So the requirements are too abstract or too ambiguous, and there isn't enough implementation support. When those requirements aren't concrete enough, they won't cover every phase of the development lifecycle. Also, every team will have different views on how to implement those requirements. That leads to reinventing the wheel in many places. Do you have a practical example to give here, Petri?
Well, yeah, I guess I do. HSL uses the ISO 27000, ISO 27K, how do you want to say it, security framework, which is a very high-level framework. It is a challenge to provide the requirements for teams from that abstraction of the framework.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So when no one in a team is responsible for implementing those security requirements, it will be something that is called a shared responsibility. But in practice, that means that it's effectively no one's responsibility. So that's how it is. And also, when there's no communication between teams, it means that a culture of security collaboration won't be able to grow or thrive. And in the end, all of these issues lead to a more reactive culture of constantly fighting fires instead of proactive or security by design. One way to tackle these issues is to use DevSecOps. And in our opinion, DevSecOps can be distilled to three principles: shifting left, collaboration, and visualization. First, shifting left means handling security issues as close to the source as possible, at the start, if you will. This utilizes automation to build something called security gates. Security gates prevent the introduction of new vulnerabilities in a project. Design flaws and component dependencies are then discovered via threat modeling. And threat modeling also helps everyone in the project, including business stakeholders, to get a better understanding of the threat landscape and also to select and prioritize the appropriate security controls. What do you think about shifting left, Petri?
Well, HSL is conducting a large amount of pre-production security audits. We do that before the production, at the end of the project. Many of the audit findings could have been handled in the earlier development phase. Mm-hmm. So why not do the security by design as we have been discussing?
That is very true. Next, collaboration. Another vital part of security work. By empowering certain members in your team to oversee security work, the previously mentioned problem of security is everyone's but actually no one's responsibility is effectively avoided. You are making the teams themselves responsible for their project's security, not some external security team. This is a culture transformation, so it's very important that it's backed by a strong community and leadership. And finally, the previously discussed security requirements passed to the teams for implementation should be simple and actionable. They also shouldn't be rolled out all at once, but iteratively. And finally, the security compliance of those projects can then be visualized for a clear situational view. Here is an example of considering security in every development phase. So starting from planning, from phase 1, using threat modeling to prevent design flaws. Then moving on to actual implementation and testing phases 2 to 4, using different analysis tools to catch bugs and vulnerabilities as early as possible, and then to release operation and monitoring the following phases by ensuring a safe operating environment. At the same time, continuously keeping your asset management list up to date and analyzed with software bill of materials or SBAM.
What I see in this, I see a never-ending story. But in this case, it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're correct. It's a process that is also never-ending. Our journey with HSL started by conducting something that we call a DevSecOps maturity assessment. What it entails is evaluating the current security-related processes and tools. But most importantly, after that, we created a development plan in which we detailed the appropriate future security measures, such as writing out responsibilities, building a community, selecting tools, and building processes. This fall, we are starting a security champion program with HSL, with some pilot projects to whom we're introducing the security tooling and threat modeling. At the same time, in collaboration with these projects and the HSL cybersecurity team, we are codifying these requirements to the Secure Software Development Lifecycle, or SSDLC, that should be compatible with ISO 27K. Finally, some key takeaways. So security isn't just a bunch of documents. It should be owned by somebody, preferably the development team. And they need actually time to implement those requirements.
Key takeaways number 2. Take a look at that. About the requirements. They need to be clear and actionable and supported by the community. As I mentioned before, ISO 27000 framework is very abstract. So we need to be able to provide the teams with a clear understanding of the requirements, what we want from them security-wise.
That is true. Takeaway number 3. Security gates prevent vulnerabilities from arising in projects, and here we leverage automation. Key takeaway number 4. Threat modeling. It's essential to conduct threat modeling throughout the project's lifecycle to catch new vulnerabilities as early as possible, also while giving everyone involved a clear view of the project's threat landscape.
Also, thinking about the scenario presented on the key takeaway 4, that scenario could have been prevented by threat modeling, active threat modeling. So threat modeling is the key to many things.
Very true. And the software bill of materials, key takeaway point number 5, it can help you to combat supply chain attacks by providing you with a clear view of your application's open source component dependencies. So this concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank Petri for co-presenting and sharing his views about cybersecurity in the real world.
Thank you, Massimo. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you. And we're hoping that everyone watching this presentation got something useful out of it. Thank you and be safe.
Take care.